Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the part of the world you're in. Welcome back to the Venture Outfitter Weekly. We're excited about all the different things that are happening, and since I've been traveling a little bit, and we had a little bit of chaos just because of my travel schedule and all that sort of stuff. I'm excited to be back over here as we're preparing for the holidays. Holidays are always an interesting time for entrepreneurs because a lot of us have to be reminded to take some time off and to relax. And so perhaps we'll be talking about that. But today, really, the conversation is really going to be about just a community conversation. We do, 4 different styles of meetings on these VO Weeklies. One of them is have an expert, like we had the Secretary of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the country of El Salvador come, and she talked about what was happening with Bitcoin. We're going to have her back in the next few weeks. The next couple of weeks, we're going to have some special experts. I'll talk about that in the next few slides about how technology is being used in a positive way. But really, today is going to be, as we kind of get ready for the holidays, I kind of want to just have the Venture Outfitter conversation to be about just how things are going and taking it easy and reporting in and more of a community conversation. I won't spend any time today on the commercial about, we have both 2 different levels of the network or the community. Obviously, there's a lot of free community activities. If you know an entrepreneur that you think should be a part of this, invite them into the weekly calls. We do have a community site. I'll tell you a couple of embarrassing things about it in a couple of slides. But we have a community site that's available for free, and then we have a network level for some of the special offers around what Tech Ranch and the Venture Outfitter can bring to you. But we'll be talking about that more soon. So we've been having some problems with our network. I got a note from Celia earlier today, and several of you yesterday saying, "Hey, what happened to the network? The Mighty network was down." There was our webmaster. Well, one of the things that's happening is everyone knows that I have a tech background, and typically am doing most of the technology, at least historically, around Tech Ranch or the low-level Unix admin. I was a Unix admin at the very beginning of my career, and then I was a software developer, and then I became an entrepreneur. And it's a liability at sometimes about having that background. But the best part about the screw-up, this time it wasn't me. Our webmaster did an update to our site, and that ended up taking out our Mighty network for the last 24 hours. It should be fixed in some part of the world. I've already been told that it has been fixed. If you need to get in, if you're actually working on, like if you're in one of the programs and you need to get involved in something, the URL that we should be using right now temporarily, like this moment, is techranch.mn, as in mightynetworks.co. That being said, the ventureoutfitter.com site or URL should be working soon. But and if you're not on this and you want to be in the community level, you can get involved in the paid network level. But if you're not on it yet, just go ahead and go there, or tell Jello, my assistant, will get you a invite to it so you can be on there. The main thing we're doing is, as we build out that network, is we want to create this base. Any of you that worked with me years ago, back when we were building out Bootstrap Austin, we went from this like little small group of people, entrepreneurs in Austin, Texas. This was back when it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur in Austin, Texas. And we built out an 800-person network, and it ended up being one of the most valuable resources ever. I want to rebuild that, although we're going to use modern tools, and that's what's happening. And then every once in a while, there's a Unix error or a DNS error in this case. A config was set up wrong. And so Celia and the other people that are here today that have active projects to put in, we'll be fixing that very quick. I've been told that it's already fixed. It's just a matter that it takes a little bit for it to propagate. So next week on the we are going to have a VO Weekly. We're going to be talking about Christmas is a refugee story. And I have two different speakers. Shirley, who wrote a book called Dear Brown Girl. She's actually a speaker she's about a couple weeks ago was at the UN talking about how technology can be applied to solve different issues in the world. In fact, one of the most touching things that she talked about, or that she's helping roll out, is in Syria right now, there's a mental health crisis like probably can't be matched any other part of the world. In that, and there's only about 150, as I understand it, mental health workers that are still in the country. And so she's applying technology, or through one of the groups that she works with, she's applying technology to help those Syrian refugees. And then Arda, who I met through a series of connections, including Janet Brooks, who's with us today, is from Turkey, and he's going to be talking a little bit about what's Turkey's response to dealing with some of the refugees and some really advanced. I think he told me the other day, 6 million people are right now in one of the most modern refugee camps in the world, and the largest population of refugees that are expatriated from their country, their home country. He'll be telling us a little bit about that as well. Arda, is there anything you want to say, or just hop in and add to what I'm mentioning really quick for what we'll talk about next week?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kevin. As you mentioned, I'm from Turkey, living in Austin. An immigrant, came to US around 5 years ago, and in Turkey there's a massive immigration from neighboring countries mainly, but even, let's say, recently from Afghanistan too, which is not a neighbor. But Turkey is like a safe haven for those, and is a very welcoming country. I think it's in the culture, although we're dealing with our own problems over there, like Turkish lira losing a lot of value, like almost like a devaluation recently. No matter what, we're like a candidate EU country. As a candidate EU country, we're almost like the door to Europe too. So that's, as a NATO ally, as a EU candidate country, and being a dominantly Muslim population, I think Turkey is a really interesting case, and it is by far largest immigrant holding country in the world. So I'm not an expert in this field, but I can tell you from a citizen perspective what's happening and how Turkey is dealing with it through some research. Apparently, I don't want to disrespect Charlie, who is an expert in this field. I am not. But I think I can share some stuff with you guys, which you can find interesting, and maybe we can try to learn from some successes, what's happening over there, and maybe adopt or do partnership, because I know UN is extremely involved with what's happening in Turkey and helping out a lot too, as well as EU. So maybe some knowledge, some technology, infrastructure. I don't know.
That's perfect. I mean, a lot of what our job here as a network of entrepreneurs is actually just working with each other. And a lot of times, it's the mind of the entrepreneur, and then a big group of us. I explain a lot of times that if you want to take on the sharks and the whales of the world, you build a school of piranha. And even if you're not an expert in the field, the best part about what's happening with the network is how we're tearing into different issues together. And so I'm glad that you're here today, and thanks for letting me put you on the spot. And thanks for next week. And the main thing about it is, just so for those of you all that haven't been around on other video calls, a lot of my hypothesis about this is that if you read Clayton Christensen's books, you always go to they say go to the place where the market is non-served or underserved to apply technology. So if with the technology entrepreneur part of my head, you go to the underserved or the non-served part of the market. Refugees happen to be a lot of times very underserved just by definition of what's happening. And so what's interesting, just to keep on playing this out, because we actually had some really great previous conversations about how do you innovate the vulnerable out of harm's way. That was one of the topics. In fact, one of our entrepreneurs helped get 1,200 Afghans out of Afghanistan this past August using our network and using some of the resources around our network. And it was pretty cool about what happened. So it's a common theme that we bring up, but a lot of times the thing about it is, and the network's not just about refugees. It just happens to be this is a really interesting place to innovate. That there are funds, and a lot of times, the big corporate responses that might be traditional, I don't think have the right answers. They don't have the right answers, and by definition, they're historic and kind of slow moving. Maybe they can do interesting things, but that's where this group of entrepreneurs in this network can do stuff. So thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to that conversation, and I'm looking forward to your perspective as a U.S.-based Turkish entrepreneur that has the perspective there.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Me too.
On December 23rd, actually, I think we might have gotten these dates wrong. Let's see, this is December 23rd, which is next week, and then, hey, Jello, I think we got the dates wrong. On December 30th, so ignore the date on this, we're going to talk about food security. One of the entrepreneurs that I've been working with, a guy by the name of Aiden, is just moved to Austin, and we were having a conversation where I said people should eat, and recognizing Jody Lane runs a group here in Austin called the Fruitful Commons. They have a network of 80 local gardens in the Austin area. We're going to hear from her, and then we're going to hear from Joy Chavellier. Joy Chavellier runs a group called the Cook's Nook, and is presently, I think, has more than 3,000 meals per day going out from the Cook's Nook to people that don't have food security in Austin. Her business really, especially, was stood up during the time of when COVID wiped out the COVID economy, wiped out getting supplies at the local stores. A lot of people didn't have the money, they didn't have food, and she responded. So food security, people should eat. This is going to be on December 30th. Ignore the date. December 23rd is next week, and that's when we're going to do the talk about Christmas is a refugee story. So coming very soon. And if you have other people that you think should be involved in this, I know that several times, Kim Johnson had actually said, hey, you should invite this person, this person, this person. Instead of telling me to invite them, just invite them. Invite them into the conversation. I liked, as we're just about to do, for those of y'all that haven't been part of these conversations before, I do like to have a lively interaction. One of the reasons that I've been kind of resistant to get into the more formal tools of StreamYard and stuff like that is I'm kind of holding on to this community group, so that because the conversations are usually most interesting when it's not just me talking. So, all right. So today is about preparing for the holidays. This is our generic way of just saying, wondering what you're doing as an entrepreneur, wonder what you've been doing. Like in the case of Jetty, we're going to get him to talk about what's been happening. We haven't gotten to see him on the VO Weekly in a while. We'll get him to talk about the conference that he was just at. I also will share some things that have been happening around the Tech Ranch. We've had a couple of major breakthroughs on two big initiatives that are really totally separate that I want to make sure we talk about. But really, I'd like to have an open conversation with all of y'all. I'm going to stop the share because we don't have slides for this. And I'd like to just find out what's happening in your lives and all that sort of stuff. I noticed as well, there's a couple of different people that are actually talking about it. I should have mentioned, Jetty just said in the chat session, I love Joy, she is thebomb.com. Actually, I'm on the board of advisors of both of those organizations just because I'm so moved by how they are driving, in the context of driving shared prosperity. And then, food security is part of shared prosperity. You don't know what food security is until you don't have it. I happen to have that as the son of a single mom that didn't have a lot of cash as a kid, I experienced what it's like to not have food security, and so that's why I'm a personal. I mean, I dedicate personal advisor time to those two organizations. So that's one thing that we'll definitely do. And then let's see. Pauline is saying when we have a chance, we should briefly discuss the Kentucky tornado damage. It'd be interesting to find out solutions that could be applied into that as well. But really, what I'd like to do is I'd like to open up the conversation and just say, hey, this is what's going on. The way you can signal to me that you're interested in speaking is to come off a mute or just, give me a hand signals or something like that. What I'll do is I'll start by saying two big initiatives around the Tech Ranch are happening. One of them's in the supply chain. Many of you know that Tech Ranch has a number of companies that are supporting the electrification of mobility. That is, as we transition out of gas cars into electric cars, there's an important inflection point about what's happening. And we want to make sure that we don't have what happened in Detroit happen to our industry. If you remember, or if you know history, Detroit was the technology capital of the world, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And then all of a sudden in the 80s, it stopped. It dropped that very quickly. It didn't make the transition to smaller footprint kind of cars that Japan took over. The big concern there is Tech Ranch has an initiative, and we actually have a wholly separate organization called Venture Connections that's helping drive the supply chain between Texas and Mexico, actually between the U.S. and Mexico. And we now have several clusters on the Mexican side of the border that are now involved in that. And the only reason I mention it is if you're in electric vehicles or more generally in manufacturing and you're not a part of that work group, you'll want to know about it just because some exciting things are happening. I'll be following up with a couple of the other owners of the, or not owners, directors of the clusters of several different states. There's 5 different states in Mexico that we're doing that with. We're focusing on electrification. It has implications across the whole supply chain because there's this massive shift that we saw signaled by President Biden and President Trump before him about that shift away from China. And I'm not anti-Chinese. I am very pro-Mexico, and so we'll be talking about that. In fact, I think last week we even mentioned about how some of our new Hungarian entrepreneurs that I just met when I was in Budapest 3 weeks ago are going to participate in that process as well. And one of our Hungarian startups has just recently, like last 2 weeks, closed their first sale in Mexico, so that we got to be a part of. So just something to mention really quick. The second thing, and this will tie into what I hope to hear from Jetty about, is many of you might not know that there's a group called the Texas Global Health Security Initiative. It was started by University of Texas and Tech Ranch and Texas State University and Texas A&M University in response to the pandemic. Like how could we bring, in the context of global health security, how can we bring as much awareness to these issues and organize the new technologies and things like that? Most of the activities have been focused on virus, the virus and therapeutics around that, stuff like that. The World Health Organization has gotten involved, and the UN has gotten involved in a couple different ways. And if you want to hear more about this, go to texghs.org. I'm on the steering committee of that organization, was one of the founders. For those of you all don't know, Tech Ranch is working with the Pandemic Tech Accelerator all the way back to 2017. I'd like to say we were doing pandemics before pandemics were cool. But the thing that ties into what I wanted to announce is I started the mental health special interest group because I have a family history of mental illness that, I got to deal with family members that actually, well, my dad specifically, that had difficulties when I was a kid. There's a mental health crisis going on in the United States and around the world. Even if you didn't get the virus, there's still an impact of what's happened. And so part of what we've done is we've started this mental health SIG, special interest group, that on March 15th of this next year, we're going to have actually, there's going to be 4 days of global health security initiatives. The one that I personally am leading is on the mental health SIG. And so if you have any mental health, mental illness startups or wellness or resilient community type of startups, technologies, otherwise, like Kim Johnson, I'm thinking of you from the standpoint of some of the stuff about dealing with addictions that you do. We'll have an opportunity to put you on the stage. We're going to have startup pitches. We'll have what are called insights, videos that describe different research about what's happening. We're going to have some speakers. And the speakers that are right now slated, they haven't been all confirmed, but they're all top tier. And so it's pretty exciting about that. March 15th is when it's going to be. Now, for startups, what we'll do is we're going to record the pitches like we did with our Impact Innovation Forum. And I'm really wanting to get to around 40 startups because I have access to the venture capitalists in the space that are going to be a part of this conversation. And if you do pitch, you'll get exposure to top tier VCs, top tier concern areas. And the thing that I want to announce about this, although it's not an official announcement, but I'm telling the community, the Meadows Institute, which is a $1 billion foundation, listened to all my hand waving, and they're now involved. And it's real exciting times. The University of Texas Hogg Center, which is focuses on mental health as well, had already been involved. But now we have the Meadows Institute, which means that the game that I've been talking about in this mental health space that kind of sets the table for next week's talk is just got access at the world level. Like when you have a $1 billion foundation that's partnering with you, this little idea of a bunch of startups that are, these piranha, okay, our game's going to go big. And I'm excited about that. I think some of the stuff that we'll hear from Jetty is going to tie into that as well, because there's some really interesting announcements about what's happening in the field of psychedelics and how they're being used to deal with the mental health crisis as well. And we'll go from there. Jetty, why don't I go ahead and put you on the spot so I stop talking so much and we start hearing from the community. If you're able to come off of mute, tell us, what's the conference you just did in New York this last week?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Hey, hang on, let me turn off my air purifiers here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so I went to the Horizons conference on psychedelics, and I'm really happy to tell you all about it. It has been a while since I've been on this call, and glad to see this community entrepreneur is still going very strong. Thank you, Kevin. It was good to catch up with you briefly. So about Horizons, yeah, I've been just keeping up to date, getting back into a lot of the swing of things in the world of mental health. And I did that most recently by going to Horizons, which is the world's oldest and largest, I believe, annual conference on psychedelics. I believe this is their 15th conference now, and that is in New York City. They did not have a conference last year because of the pandemic. And so this was a big, really big deal on multiple fronts. A lot of people reuniting. They had the multidisciplinary focus, bridging the policy. So federal, state policy, some of the changing guidance and the legal structures, the scientific breakthroughs, academic research, and what was new this year was also an explosion of interest in the business forum, entrepreneurship, and investor, including venture investors. Vine Ventures was an especially prominent investor. And there's, of course, the usual, just swell of interest in therapeutics and social work on the mental health side with psychedelics. And psychedelics have been around for a very long time in mental health. How it relates to this area is because the sort of intersection of all this continues to just explode really forcefully towards the mainstream, especially with the pandemic. And with the pandemic, we had so many people go through so much catastrophic loss, loss of business, loss of life. And, the real promise of psychedelics has for a long time been that they're a novel, cost-effective way of addressing a lot of these really hard to treat mental health issues, especially in the realm of PTSD, but not necessarily limited to PTSD. A lot of the research has been limited to, what organizations, super organizations like MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, have been able to do in federally funded and controlled studies. But now it's really got a chance to get towards the mainstream and help a lot more than what has historically been just, combat veterans studying, struggling with PTSD. So what happened in the conference? Well, a lot of people have been talking about just new advances. And believe it or not, it's not just the liberal states. Oregon and California, of course, are at the forefront of, for example, the changing, opening up, I should say, of federal and state policy in terms of decriminalization and allowing of psychedelics to be allowed in different practices. But believe it or not, Texas is part of the conservative state track, if you will. They're decriminalizing and allowing for some for some new ways of psychedelics to be paved. And so there's sort of this liberal track state and conservative state track that could have a lot of promise for different entrepreneurs, different social workers, for a lot of people who want to explore different avenues for mental health for themselves and for their loved ones. And the research is also, coming back and saying, as these avenues are opening up, they're saying, well, we're seeing some very promising and very safe results from the field as these opportunities are opening up.
Yeah, let me mention.
I could drill a little bit deeper into that, but that's the high level recap.
Yeah, what I can do is for those of y'all that haven't been exposed to the area, just to throw out a couple other things. So you can read some of the research at maps.org, like Jetty was mentioning, maps.org. They're going through and getting level 3 FDA approval of these treatments. The most touching, where I actually got to meet some of the people who have gone through this sort of stuff, going into the pandemic time, right? Before the pandemic, we were losing in the United States somewhere between 22 to 24 vets per day to suicide.
22 a day. That's the known number. Yeah, and entire nonprofits have sprung up around 22 a day.
Yeah, and everyone knows that the suicide rates went up during COVID times. It's just because the economy isolated everyone, and so a bad situation got even worse. So the numbers are underreported right now for what it is during 2020 and 2021, but the numbers did go up. I talked to the CEO about the Meadows Institute about that myself, and it's just interesting. One of the vets that I saw go through this. His name is, he's a Navy SEAL. He was actually one of the Navy SEALs that was deployed immediately after 9/11 into Afghanistan. His name is Marcus Capone. He lives in Dallas, Texas. Really interesting guy, like foreboding guy, really giant. I met him at one of the conferences, and you talk to this guy, you're like, okay, this guy's really, truly a war fighter, truly a warrior. And it was interesting that when he talked about it, he said that the 60% of the time there are cases that are untreatable PTSD that after one or two settings with these psychedelics are actually, these untreatable cases are now actually having good results. And Marcus told me, directly to my face, he actually talks about this in some of his videos as well, that he was at the end of his life and he found this treatment, and now he helps other vets get access to the treatment. One of the people that will, I hope he says yes on speaking on the March 15th, will be Marcus, because when a warrior like him, or a warrior that's really seen, like, really truly is a tough guy, and it talks about that sort of stuff. It's quite interesting to hear his perspective. So there's a revolution in what's happening about that. What's the tech ranch response? The main thing about it is, since I started the SIG, the thing I actually think is going to come out of that, and as I'm looking at, even, we have a small group of entrepreneurs here, but we still have an interesting group of entrepreneurs, that there will be opportunities to do, not just to go deep in the technologies around the psychedelics themselves, but all the different support opportunities around that as well. And so we'll have more conversations about that. I know Rick Doblin, the head of MAPS, personally, and I know some of the VCs that are investing in the space personally as well, so we'll follow up. And back to what Jetty said, it was quite interesting to see, former governor of Texas, Rick Perry, leading the charge for this in Texas. I never would have thought that I would have seen someone that, epitomizes conservative Republican in Texas talk about this, but yeah, he's been on the news in the last few weeks, so quite interesting about what's happening.
Yeah, it was wild. That was I think one of the most unexpected parts of the conference for me was people will badmouth Texas for their own reasons, but there was a lot of genuine excitement, especially since it's almost a given that a lot of more liberal states will sort of lead the charge along the opening up of regulations and offering different practices, allowing for different economic opportunities for social workers, for entrepreneurs, for different businesses to open up. But conservative states also need some sort of track to follow, and so Texas could actually provide a lot of sort of a model for those to follow. Was my what was what I gleaned from that. And there are people who are hurting everywhere. There are veterans everywhere. Certainly a large number of combat veterans are represented in as conservative states. And whether or not, and to zoom out further, I would say whether or not you personally are interested in psychedelics for personal use, I would say the larger really opportunity here is that this is part of a larger, I think, broader recognition of the pandemic's real impact and devastation on people, and especially on mental health. I mean, obviously, this has decimated a lot of businesses, families, lives, and this is one way that's benefited is that it's accelerated the timeline and acceleration and adoption of psychedelics, but that's in response to the very real recognition, the very strong recognition that there's a very real mental health impact here, especially for entrepreneurs. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who themselves I met were dealing with different issues and communities that they represented that were struggling with mental health. And so I think there's a lot of just broader promise here, and I think that it just is another indicator, an encouraging indicator that mental health is going to continue to make strong progress, and there's going to be more funding, there's going to be more community advocacy work, there's going to be more investment into the space. We're already seeing, there's a lot of indicator of frothy or explosive investment activity into mental health ventures, psychedelic or not, in this space, and that could cascade downward and outward. That's very
So
exciting.
let's do this. Let's do
Yeah.
this. One of the things I think we're going to do is, obviously you and I could talk about this for hours and stuff like that. And Jetty,
Yeah,
one
I
of
was
you
just
guys
landing
will
my
be back in
plane.
Austin.
Sorry.
Let's make sure we actually create some space, because part of the I mean, there is a lot of things that I think that we can go into, and we'll have a specific program or two next week's. Obviously, part of the talking about Christmas is a refugee story, and the refugees deal with mental health crisis worse than any one of us could probably imagine. A lot of times, we'll have a little bit of a touch on it there. We'll have a specific program about this. If you're interested in this area or the other initiative I mentioned earlier, please do let us know. And Jetty, I'm definitely gonna be reaching back out to you to pull you into the SIG as well, because I know you're passionate about this. Who else would like to say something? I mean, even if it's if nothing else, what I'd like to do is we have a couple of our entrepreneurs from the Hungarian program that I'm tempted to put on this on the hot seat to actually get them to do their elevator pitches, as well as Kim Johnson was saying right before we started recording um, uh, about he had just applied for. Well, I'll let him tell you in just a second. I'd like to just hear like what else is happening. I mean, part of the transition topic might be mental health during the holidays is definitely something that me as an entrepreneur, I know that I have to pay attention to, because I actively have to engage with myself to slow down. And it doesn't ever work every year, but but I have to try. Who would like to? Kim, tell us about what's going on with you.
So
Sure.
yeah, so two things are going on, but the next deadline for small business SBIR, STTR applications is January 5th. So I'm hunkered down to try to do that. We did get preliminary data on 14 subjects on the use of contingency management for as applied to alcohol use disorder. And so we are in the throes of revising an application we had done before with new and updated data that will go in January 5th, and we're hopeful that that will produce some funding for a clinical trial of 120 patients across 4 different clinical practices in the Pacific Northwest. And then in the meantime, we're also refining our training program, continuing nursing education program for training relative to babies born of addicted mothers for hospitals, and that will be out in January. And so we thank you for the response. Melvin helped, and some other folks. We are changing over our staff, and I would say my goals for 2022 is I want to generate revenue with our continuing nursing education program, but I'm also and Kevin, you're well aware of what this position is. I'm also looking to transition and potentially add a co-founder or a senior technical person that can help as we get support some of the new processes and take ourselves into more deeply into the mechanics of contingency management for all kinds of issues, including mothers that suffer from opioid use disorder or other substances. So, my goal for 2022 is to start peppering you guys with a finished training program that we're offering, and then try to align with people that can help us expand our work from NIH specific into broader categories of addictions and implementation for clinics.
Yeah, let me give context on 2 different things that Kim has said. One of the things that y'all should be thinking about as you look at this network is, Kim's been collaborating with a couple of other entrepreneurs that have their own startups in the network. If you have one group of people who are going after healthcare And then you can also partner up to go after that same group of people as well, even if, with a complementary, where you're not interacting with a competitor, you're actually complementing each other. It gives you a little bit more reach. It's one thing that I've seen happen behind the scenes. In fact, Kim had sent Carlos from Chihuahua, Mexico, a message about that just yesterday because of the thread that I had started among them. I want to make sure that I mention that you should be thinking about that as you hear someone like Kim. Other than it's actually interesting about what he's doing with regards to supporting people that have addictions to get out of those addictions. There's the first subject matter, but then there's the way to think about how to interact among yourselves in the network. The third thing that he mentioned is he mentioned SBIR, and I don't know if everyone knows what SBIR stands for. It stands for Small Business Innovative Research Grants. This is like you can get seed funding from the U.S. government in specific target areas. And Kim's got a lot of experience with this. He's I don't know anyone else that's been more successful than him about getting SBIR grants. There's other entrepreneurs in the network that have gotten SBIR grants, but quite successful in the work that he's done with the NIH and other groups like the NSF, the National Science Foundation. You do have to be based in the States, and you have to have, but I have even seen foreign entrepreneurs open up a US-based entity and then leverage that as well. So what we might do is, given that that was a popular topic in the past, in the coming weeks, coming months, we'll have another talk about that. Since he's under the gun, I'm not going to ask him to talk about that anytime soon because I know it's going to be race to the finish. I did post into the Slack channel yesterday about the same type of opportunities in education. And the way that I found out about the Venture Outfitter Network being down or not accessible yesterday was because I was going to post it into the Mighty Network, the network. Now that that's coming back up, I'll post that into there as well. But the main thing is just to be looking at these fields. And if you see, the other thing I'd just ask is if you see an interesting funding opportunity, but it doesn't apply to you, just copy it and paste it into there. Even if it's a great way to share what's going on, to share opportunity back and forth of like grants that might be available. And that's a great way that we can work together. Let's do this. Celia, since you're here, since I can see you on camera, I know I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us your elevator pitch and anything you might need. So Celia is an entrepreneur that actually is based out of Austin, but I met through the Hungary program. And so she can tell a little bit about that story as well. But first off, give us your elevator pitch.
Yeah, I thought that you were asking how I am doing and what I am doing before the holidays. I was hoping for that question. But
yeah, no, you can do that as well. The main thing is I want to make sure that so that people know what you're working on. Because, I mean, like as an example, with Kim's attention right now, I think that there might be collaboration opportunities between the two of y'all. And so the elevator pitch was just the way to create that hook to pull things together.
Okay, so I start with a short introduction. Yes, I live in both places in Budapest. Now I am in Budapest, but last week I was still in Austin. My family will come to to Budapest for the holidays, but this is because of my old mother. So she's 82, so she cannot travel. But I will be back in Austin. I love the place. So, but I'm originally from California. So what I do or what our company does, we deal mainly with pharmaceutical companies, and currently we are really very busy with delivering the solutions, because I don't know how is it in other markets, but the pharmaceutical industry every end of the year finds a lot of money in the drawer, and then immediately they would like to spend it the last couple of weeks. So we are very busy. And what is the elevator pitch and what is the product which we are selling so successfully, touch wood? So what you need to know is healthcare is becoming more specific, and general medical knowledge is not suitable enough. So our the medical scan MyClick Doctor solution is it helps, it contributes to and facilitates an easy and convenient access to up to date. I'm a little bit excited, but I will try to go on. So to up to date, relevant and reliable medical information for medical institutes and for private clinics. Pharmaceutical industry is keen to provide up to date information to doctors, so they are ready to fund or willing to fund online medical consultations. And basically our solution is a medical matchmaking, which if you are interested in it helping or its benefit, it provides benefit to the patients, and it's a cost saving opportunity.
Yeah, so it's like it's the right info at the right time when health is in the balance, getting medical consults. And so really interesting technology and that and interesting business model as well. I know you were one of the people who sent me the note that said, "Hey, I'm trying to do my homework here, but I can't gain access to the site. Anything you want to make a request to anyone on the group other than to me and to Renee, our webmaster, to get the site back up so you can take the next step on your market support process?"
I think maybe currently I'm not aware. Currently, I know very well the European health market. I'm a doctor and also I have an economy degree, but American market is completely unknown for me. And of course, I believe that the pharmaceutical companies act the same, but any support or any idea or advice is more than welcome. I really would appreciate it.
So Omar Zaki, one of our venture partners in Venture Outfitter, he's sitting here. Now we happen to be sitting in the same room, which always makes the microphone thing kind of funny on Zoom. But T runs there's an initiative called the Patient Care Innovation Bridge. We haven't been doing a lot of activities recently about this, but maybe I'll see if I can click the right button to have the spotlight be on you versus on me. But you want to just mention something about the Patient Care Innovation Bridge?
Yeah, I mean it's an ongoing.
Can you hear me better?
No, I went ahead and I spotlighted you. Let's just use this one microphone.
Yeah. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's an ongoing initiative where we're trying to. Leverage basically the opportunities between the ecosystems that we deal with and the different startups in healthcare and digital health and health tech, and find ways to get them to collaborate with each other, potentially pilot each other's business models and technologies, identify comparable or similar challenges in their markets, and see if we can again create new partnerships, new opportunities, and provide the support that the ventures and the founders need through TechRanch's ecosystem and network of mentors and advisors and etc. So happy to kind of continue exploring with you, Celia, and others, where there's opportunities to support you guys further through the Innovation Bridge, and develop more of a active kind of engagement with you guys to get your ventures across whatever next finish line you need to get to.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Thank you.
And so part of the thing to be thinking about as we think about that, so we will have activities around the Patient Care Innovation Bridge, and mental health is being separated out. But when we're building bridges, this Texas-Hungary venture bridge as an example. Let's talk. One of the conversations at some point we need to have is just what does a bridge look like? Bridges can have two dimensions. Which regions are being connected, and then what initiative areas are being connected. In the Patient Care Innovation Bridge, there's been activities now that have happened between Texas, Mexico, Italy, and Egypt. And each one of those countries has been touched by the other one. I mean, or I shouldn't say Texas as a country, but you all know I'm a proud Texan. But the thing that's interesting about this on healthcare, on the healthcare, the patient care innovation bridge that has these activities across these 4 countries. They don't have to be limited to those countries. In the case of the patient care innovation bridge, I just started recognizing that we have all of these patient care or patient focused initiatives like Kim's that we've heard about earlier today, like Celia's that we've heard about today, like a lot of people know David Potes from Mexico. Make a long story short, we'll have more announcements about that coming soon. If you're not in that area of the Mighty Network, as soon as it comes back up, and I apologize again that we had the problem that happened, but you'll want to make sure that you're in that narrowcast area inside the Mighty Networks and also on the Slack channels. There is a channel. It doesn't get a lot of traffic, but the main thing about it is you want to make sure that you're subscribed to that, whether it's one of the people here that's in the studio audience or someone else that happens to be listening to the live stream that's happening as well. Since we're coming to the end of our time together, this time goes fast, and I know I probably talked too much myself, but I want to go ahead and bring back the slides and just say, let's make sure on December 23rd, join Shirley and Arda. We're going to have what will be a little bit more of a formal presentation, just as short and sweet in both cases. Both speakers will actually have a little bit of information. And then we'll have community conversation around that. I think that's one of the most wonderful things about having. We typically do have a lot of interaction like that. So, and I do want to promote that one more than we did today. Today's program was just, thank you all for showing up. It's just, we didn't promote today as much because I knew that sometimes our community conversations are more intimate if we, just see who wants to be here. But this will be on the 23rd, and then on the 30th, we have food security. People should eat. We'll hear from Joy and Jody and the work that they're doing in taking on food security in Central Texas, and then how these models can be used in other parts of the world. As you prepare for the holidays, take care. Entrepreneurs, I challenge you to take some time off. If you look at my calendar, even though I end up having a lot of different meetings, it says hold for being a bum or something like that. I don't remember what I put, but I just blocked it all out. Definitely take care of yourselves. If you need suggestions about that, send me a WhatsApp message, and I can tell you what the things that I'm personally doing to try to do my best to wind down. I know it's hard for us to wind down, so I just want to make sure that I encourage each one of you to do the same. And
can I actually volunteer an idea?
Sure. Really quick. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm actually glad that you had this topic. I know that for me, family can be really rough during this time of year. We actually just said bye to my little brother, and he went back to Colorado, bit of an offset holiday schedule. And I was already thinking about hosting one of these, and you got me thinking about this. So I have been chatting with some friends about having sort of I came up with the name during this call, but a Friends Navidad group call. Just to have some company during what could be downtime. And, I think that whether that's within this community or our own individual communities, that could be really cool just to fill up, if there is an empty space with family during that time, that could be really cool to do in our own time.
Yeah, especially since we have so many international entrepreneurs that a lot of times that are distant from truly what they consider home. That would be great. Make sure you just post it onto the network. That would be perfect. On this slide is my reminder that if you want to join our email list, if you want to join our mentor list, if you have a country of interest that you would like to make sure that you're in the country, what we call the country management Country manager doesn't mean anything particular other than, like, as an example, there's a gentleman from the country of Armenia that said, "Hey, Kevin, if anything happens around Armenia, please, keep me in the loop." He's Armenian by birth, or same thing. Just sign up for that as well. There's going to be a special list that we will add as well about some of the other links. Like, a lot of times, if you don't know the general area of the website to post, you can post into here as well. You can look here, and a lot of the links are there for connecting into the different parts of Tech Ranch and the Venture Outfitter Network. And with that, we're going to bring today the official live stream and the recording to an end, and say, it's always an honor to be able to work with entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values. Let's go change the world for the better together. So thank you all for your time today.
Thanks, Kevin.
Go ahead, Jello.